What's up, music lovers? Thanks for clicking on my channel. And so Megadeth has released their final studio album, self-titled as Megadeth, and figured why not talk about it. And so Megadeth is not only one of the biggest metal bands, but also one of my favorite metal bands, and also a band that is sort of like rooting for your favorite sports team that isn't always as good as it used to be. Over the years, they've had a lot of amazing albums, even going past their heyday, but they've also had a lot of albums that were, not that great. And for whatever reason, I feel as though I was kind of in the minority where I really did not like their last album, The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead. I kind of thought it was just a bit of a slog to get through, and I felt like it was really overproduced, and it just kind of felt like everyone who was making it was not having fun. Obviously, I wasn't in the studio with them when they were making the album, but just as a listener, that is certainly how it came across to me. And this is also a completely new lineup for Megadeth, which is something that's happened quite a lot throughout their history. And so going into this final album, I kind of thought to myself, like, is this going to be a masterpiece? Is this going to be sort of just someone barely making it over the finish line and sort of a disaster? And I guess, listening to the album, it's decent. It's not their best album, and it definitely has flaws, but giving it a couple listens, I was pleasantly surprised that it was better than I was expecting it to be. And I think what I really liked about this album overall was that it feels like a band, and it doesn't just feel like Dave Mustaine's solo project. Every single member feels as though they're contributing something, and it really does sound like just a couple of guys in the recording studio having fun and playing live in the studio. There's that energy to it that a lot of metal albums sometimes in the modern day sort of lose, because the more complicated you make your music, the more you have to be to a click, the more methodical the production has to be. And while the production on this album is really good, it still has an energy that I think The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead was really lacking. Not every song on this album is great. In fact, I would say that most of them are just decent. I don't really care for I Don't Care. Musically, it's decent, but those lyrics from Dave are... they're not quite as bad as America Stan, but they definitely do come across as very juvenile and like a 14-year-old edgelord just trying to be like, yeah, I don't care. It's... I guess the only thing lyrically that saves it is that it does sort of have a punk vibe, and you are almost kind of thinking to yourself, wait, is he just joking around? Like, he's not taking this seriously, is he? But even still, I think that songs like Hangar 18 and Wake Up Dead have done this idea better, where, it's not really about the lyrics, it's more about the instrumentation and the solos. So yeah, I Don't Care is definitely one of Dave's worst lyrics, in my opinion. And staying on the subject of the lyrics to Hey God, I feel as though are Dave trying to be emotionally vulnerable, but they just don't resonate with me in the way that I think a lot of other people might have them resonate with them, or I guess they're just not as impactful as, maybe Dave was wanting them to be. Even when the lyrics sort of fumble on this album, I think that the music and the actual production saves it and picks up the slack, and with the exception of I Don't Care, I don't think that any of the lyrics on this album are just over the top egregious and awful. In fact, since it does seem like the band is having a lot of fun and just kind of be like, yeah, let's celebrate it, this is our last album, you do get little tracks like Let There Be Shred, which is a nice little callback to AC/DC's Let There Be Rock with the title, and just sort of a love letter to heavy metal. It is impossible to think of Dave Mustaine in 1990 saying, yeah, let's have a song like that on one of these albums. So the fact that, in his old age, as he's getting ready to retire, he's like, yeah, whatever, let's have a song called Let There Be Shred. And the album does have a nice mix of modern and retro. Like, it doesn't feel like it's just celebrating the past. It does feel crisp and clean and like a modern album, but obviously there's tons of guitar solos left and right. There's just things that are sort of callbacks to stuff you'd find on Euthanasia, and it's just, like I said, a good mix of old and new. And the drums combined with the other instruments make a really amazing intro for the song Obey the Call. And lyrically, while I don't think that any of the songs really hit as hard as Dave Mustaine was going for, or as impactful as they used to be back in his heyday of being a lyricist, it does seem like he does have some moments where he's being a bit more introspective. I mean, this will be their last album. And that is a nice sight to see. It's something different, even if I don't think it's done as well as someone like a Chris Cornell or a Lane Staley. It is still nice to see Dave Mustaine be a bit more contemplative. And given how polarizing of a person Dave Mustaine has been and some of the controversies he's gotten into over the years, I feel like me describing the album in that way could be seen as a positive or a negative. Another minor complaint I have with the album is that there is a couple of moments where a few of the songs back to back are right at the same tempo and sound a bit similar, and you do sort of have, kind of with Euthanasia as well, where you're like, okay, all these songs are fine, but they also do kind of feel like they are the same song. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention the cover of Ride the Lightning, which is, it's not the worst cover. It's not one of those covers that you hear like Johnny Be Good, where you're like, what were you thinking? But it's also not one of those covers like Better By You, Better Than Me, The Green Manalishi, or Diamonds and Rust, where you're like, oh yeah, you completely made that song your own. Like, man, so sick and tired of the whole Megadeth and Metallica thing, so I didn't even want to talk about their cover of Ride the Lightning, to be honest. But is this album as good as Rust in Peace, Peace Sells But Who's Buying, Countdown to Extinction, or even the debut album, or Euthanasia, or So Far So Good So What? Nah. Honestly, I don't even think it's as good as some of their later albums like Endgame or The System Has Failed, but it's definitely way better than some of their worst albums. All in all though, the self-titled album Megadeth I think is a good way to end the career. It might not be the highest note, but it's definitely not the lowest. It's like a nice cadence, you know? Go up and you end on a lower note, but it still feels right. With Megadeth retiring and with Ozzy Osbourne's passing and Brent Hines and all these things, it really does feel like we are ending the first era of metal, which is sad, but it makes me very appreciative that I got to live through it, or at least part of it, and it makes me really excited for what the future might hold, you know? There's so many other cool bands out there and independent artists, so, you know, Megadeth, Dave, everyone who's made music in that band, thank you for it, we really appreciate it, and there will be whole generation of musicians who try to carry on the torch in some way. So there you go, that's my review of Megadeth's final album, Megadeth, and let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm, so I greatly appreciate that. And if you want to listen to some instrumental music that I've done myself, there's a couple links down below. One is sort of more in the style of Megadeth, and the other one is my newest song, which is kind of out there, progressive rock, acoustic guitars, sort of ambient, a little weird. Just wanted to make a chill song while I work on some metal songs. So there's links down below if you want to check those out. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you at the next video. Rest in peace, Megadeth. Thanks for the music.